Open the door! You better start the show!
Gunslingers of the cordless West. That's our mission. Cordkillers, the folks who want to help you get the intel you need to be able to watch what you want, when you want, where you want, on whatever device you want. My name's Tom.
Hey, man, I'm Brian, and that's a little thing called, 10 Cloverfield, is it way or street or
Lane?
Lane? Yeah, of course it's a lane. 10 Cloverfield Lane, a little bad robot joint that dropped over the week, and I saw that trailer, and I was like, oh, man, this looks amazing. Makes me want to go watch Cloverfield, despite everything I've heard about Cloverfield. Oh, well, I'm sure I'll like it a lot. It's got John Goodman, and it starts off all cheery and bubblegum pop, and then descends into, like, clearly some kind of suspense horror thing. It looks good. And then, like, a few days later, Bryce is like, "Do you see Dan Trachtenberg's movie just dropped his trailer?" I'm like, "No, which one's that?" And he says 10 Cloverfield Lane. I was like, "Oh no!" And so I wrote, I texted, because while I was out shooting Hacking the System in Los Angeles, I was meeting up with Dan, and he was telling me about this movie, that he was doing, but he gave me no details. I didn't know what it was called. All I knew is that he was working with Bad Robot. And then, so I texted him saying, like, "I'm a bad friend, but now I'm a very good fan. I'm very excited." Yeah, man, it looks amazing.
Yeah, if you are a fan of Desmond's hatch from Lost, I have a feeling you're going to love 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Oh, heck yeah.
And I say that as somebody who, like, that was some of my favorite moments from Lost, was the idea of the hatch and the people kind of trying to stay away from the danger and all of that. And yeah, just icing on the cake that Danny Trachtenberg is directing it. It was, I guess, produced under the name Valencia up until the point of the trailer release. I mean, they often shoot under false names so people don't wander across the set and know what's happening. But rarely do they keep it all the way through trailer release. Like, nobody knew this thing was coming till it showed in front of Transformers.
Well, and, I honestly believe that they probably could have released it just as Valencia. They probably didn't need to tie it into the Cloverfield universe, and I wouldn't be surprised if half the people working on it didn't know it at the time. But that's a great way to, again, it's not a sequel. It's a, what do they say, a blood relative, like a cousin.
It's in the universe.
It's another story happening in the same universe, which, again, as a fan of The Dark Tower and of Stephen King's work, I'm a fan of shared universes.
Well, there are more and more universes to share all the time. Maybe too many universes? We're going to talk about that in the primary target. So there's a lot of stories like this. FX network chief worried about deep-pocketed competitors. Why the golden age of TV has some people worried. And we've got quotes from folks like John Ehrlichman at Fortune saying there's more room for one niche offerings, such as Amazon's Mozart in the Jungle, and fewer spots for mediocre sitcoms and dramas. So that's a positive. But then FX Network president John Landgraf famously warning that, maybe peak TV is a bad thing. He says he worries there aren't enough writers, producers, and actors to make high-quality shows. TV producer Ben Silverman says that even the actors and writers who get on all these cool shows make less money because the streaming services buy out the talent's upside right. The economics of these shows is definitely different. Bringing up two big questions, Brian. Number one, can the market support this many shows, both on the creator and the consumer side? And then once we have all these shows, we've got a lot of rumors out there that maybe the CW is going to launch their own streaming service to follow along in HBO's side of things. Should networks run their own services? But let's start with the market. I mean, do we really we've talked about peak TV before. Do we really have too many shows?
We certainly have too many shows for us to be a unified culture that all watches the exact same thing at the exact same time. The days of three television networks in the 1980s, I'm convinced it'll be decades before MASH's record of most simultaneous views is ever broken, assuming it hasn't already, and I'm totally wrong about that. Here's what I say is it happening? Are we becoming far more diffuse? Yes. Is that okay? Yes. Is it bad that actors are making less? No. Because if you want to get into acting, here's what it means. We're seeing the destruction of the tournament. If you read Freakonomics, they ask the question, if actresses and actors are so famous and make so much money, how come so many of them are serving me coffee? And the answer they come up with is that it's because it's a tournament. Those at the very top make incredible amounts of money. Those at the bottom are just a pyramid. They're all working as extras and making nothing in the background. Those days are ending. Now keep in mind, a tournament doesn't decide, it's not a binary sift of you have talent, you don't have talent, you are good enough, you're not good enough. It's only the winner is by a nose, and yet that person will make 10, 20, 100 times more money and be 100 times more famous. That is an artifact of an extremely inefficient system. Now we are reaching an artistically efficient system. If you have a story to tell and no budget, you could tell it right now on YouTube. You could start, Welcome to Night Vale as a podcast. And then next thing you know, you look up and it's got movie rights all over the place. This is the democratization of talent. And yes, I imagine it's pretty inconvenient to the people who used to hold the gate keys. I imagine it's pretty inconvenient to the folks who used to make 100 times more money at the top of the pyramid. But to see the destruction of the pyramid bothers me not at all.
Lionsgate president Sandra Stern kind of said the same thing. She said the proliferation of television has opened the doors to talent who were not working in TV 5 years ago. So I think you've nailed it, Brian. I don't have much to add to that analysis other than, the reason you're hearing complaints from folks like John Landgraf is because these guys had figured out how to beat the system, and then the system changed.
Yeah.
Like FX is a great example of figuring out we've got this monolithic system. So what we'll do is we'll beat them with quality and we'll come up with these great stories to tell. And FX has famously done that over and over again. And now I don't know that it's exactly sour grapes, but it's a little bit of now Netflix and Amazon can just do that. They don't have to work nearly as hard as we did to make that happen. That sucks.
Well, and iterations are going to happen faster and faster. It's the old business parable, Who Moved My Cheese? The story of two mice, both of whom find a big block of cheese. One puts on his shoes every day, scours around to look for cheese, and then says, well, that giant block of cheese is still here, so I'm going to eat. The other one just gets fat and chows down, and then one day the cheese is gone, and one of them is just pouting, saying, hey, man, who moved my cheese? And the other one's out there finding the next little bits of kipple.
Yeah, and there certainly could be something to the idea of if talent got spread around too thinly, maybe we wouldn't see as many good shows. But that falls apart as soon as I look at some of the shows that still make it to air on television.
Well, and that's the thing. If there's one shining argument ending upside to this, it's the end of beige. It used to be that if you were running a business that was primarily ostensibly for people to watch TV, but really what you were doing was selling Johnson & Johnson products, you needed your stuff to be the most conveniently bright beige, Golden Girls beige, 7 o'clock every Thursday night. And nowadays, that will not profit you. You have to take bold artistic risks. You've got to get people excited and angry. Look at Serial. Serial is a cultural phenomenon because they touched a live wire, and in some places made people really excited, and other places, like me, made people really angry. But it sparked something that got everybody talking. And again, not that you need to be controversial for controversy's sake, but you do have to be bolder in your artistic visions.
Yeah, Ted Sarandos said back in October, when people have their own personal favorites, the economics of those shows and the economics of their distribution are unique to those shows. So there's no such thing as too much TV because Netflix doesn't have to fill a 24-hour channel grid. They don't have to deliver a certain demographic to a sponsor. They just need to make sure that each and every person who subscribes has a reason to keep that subscription going for the next month. And they can afford to buy all this stuff because they're keeping the rights to it, right?
Right.
That's going to keep feeding the next generation of Netflix people who haven't seen House of Cards but are into politics, and now they're graduating college and discovering their interest in politics, and they go into Netflix and they rewatch House of Cards, just the way people rewatch MASH or something older, the same way. So I feel my analogy is books. We don't have too many books being written. We have lots of bad books being written. We have lots of good books being written. But nobody says, oh, hold on, there aren't enough good publishers and editors We need to restrict the number of
Well,
books.
let's
being
look at
written.
it from a flip side. On the other end of the spectrum, as a touring magician, there are so few magic acts out there, even now, relative to other arts, like rock music or whatever. Like people will say, "Oh, we tried having a magician once at a party. It didn't work out." But you wouldn't say like, "Oh, I tried reading a book once." Well, not my thing. It's like it was a story about a girl who died, and it's like, who wants to do that? I don't do books anymore. They're all about girls who die.
Yeah, and TV. I think we who complain about peak TV are the last of a generation who are used to being able to watch everything that was good. Right?
Absolutely.
There was always like a handful of shows that you could say these are absolutely good. Then there was a middle ground of shows where like, well, I like this kind of story, but maybe it's not done as well as I expected. And now it's like there are so many good things being done. You can't watch them all the same way you can't read all the best books that have ever been written. There's just too many of them.
Well, and keep in mind also that weirdly, this slashing of budgets more than ever does not mean a decrease in quality. Along with the democratization of storytelling, you've got the democratization of technology. You've got high-end free technologies to do 3D graphics, to do nonlinear editing, and to talented people who otherwise might be working in computer services or something, who on the weekends can pitch in on their friend's movie. I suspect. Just like, what's the effect that says every 10 years they have to reset the IQ scale, because if you measured somebody in 2016 against somebody in 1956, they would be like a genius by those standards. We have to move the goalposts for what the average is. I think we're seeing the same thing as far as artistic quality, because you look at podcasts. I mean, our production right now, a news program that's broadcasting video from a spare bedroom in my house, I would say looks as good as something from the late 1980s. So only 30 more years to catch up.
It's already better than anything produced on primetime television in the 50s because it's color.
Exactly. But my point is you're only going to get more excellent art out of it and better storytelling. And yeah, maybe harder to sell your dish soap on it, but it's like I wasn't a real big fan of that model to begin with.
I honestly think you'll have no problem selling dish soap in lots of advertising is not going to go away. All it says is the things that got made because they had to but weren't very good aren't going to get made anymore. And maybe some things that got made with skyrocketing budgets might not get made, but Netflix is definitely spending a lot. That Landgraf is complaining that Netflix spends too much on the content. So it doesn't sound like they're chinsing out on all of the shows out there. It's just, like you say, we're able to make more good stuff. Now, and you don't have to waste money on bad stuff.
If there's collateral damage, it is the only casualty I see is this illusion that we're all one people because we all saw the same show last night and we all like the same things. I think that was false whitewashing, an artifact from a bygone era.
I think it will become the way a hot book comes along every so often and so many people read it. It becomes this kind of crazy moment where like, wow, everybody's reading Harry Potter, right?
Sure.
Or something like that. We'll have TV shows like that, but it'll be a special thing, not a regular thing.
Exactly. And you know what? That'll be the new tournament. It'll be a tournament of quality, not instead of, who you slept with in order to get a role in some movie or whatever. But regardless, I think it's nothing but a good thing.
Well, if you want to kill the grease on your dishes, folks, this episode of Cordkillers is brought to you by the fine folks at Grease Killer Shampoo.
Grease Killer Shampoo? I have so much grease. How can I get rid of it? They say that Grease Killer Shampoo works because of the thousands of tiny patrons in every bottle.
A patron? How does a patron clean my dishes, Brian?
Well, you see, the patrons are the ones who really make the decisions. They're the people who keep us from having to do crass advertisements for products that we don't actually believe in, and instead give us the freedom to be loud, live, and independent by heading on over to patreon.com/cordkillers, where you could join a brigade of nearly 2,000 patrons. Let's up that number, people. Let's get up. We're at 1948 right now. Just a little bit more, and we can have 2,000 bosses, which, of course, we appreciate. If you get a little value out of our show, if we've saved you a few bucks by telling you some options to save money on your cable bill, then hopefully you'll kick a little bit of that back to us.
So you can support the show so they don't have to.
Is that what they say as they go down the drain?
Yes.
They're like, it was worth it! Early access to spoiler in time!
And seriously, thank you to all of our patrons who keep the show clean. It's time for Signals Intelligence.
I just wanted to curse really bad just then.
I know you did. Kind of did too. Lot of Netflix.
Holy cow.
Lot of Netflix in the Signals Intelligence today because we had the TV Critics Association, we had NAPI, we had CES. So there's Netflix all over the place. There's some content. There's an announcement about region locking, and there's a little spat going on between NBC and Netflix over viewership. Let's start with the content, Brian. This year, Netflix going to make 10 movies, 30 children's shows, 12 documentaries, 10 stand-up comedy specials.
I'm sorry. Just let's sum that up. That's 40, 50, 62. Is that right? 62. That's more than one a week of an original from a company that we were openly mocking during the Quickster debacle. That is amazing.
They launched more shows in Q4 of 2015 than they launched in all of 2014. So... Definitely not holding back. Jessica Jones has been officially renewed for season 2. They've signed a YouTube star, Ballinger Evans, who you probably know as Miranda Sings, if you know her at all, for 8 episodes of a comedy called Haters Back Off. Neil Patrick Harris has apparently signed on to play Uncle Olaf in the Netflix version of a series of unfortunate events, a 13-episode series, although Mark Curtis has left the show as showrunner. Variety and Deadline reporting Matt Groening in talks to do an animated show with Netflix. Netflix acquired a Sundance film called Tallulah, starring Ellen Page and Allison Janney. That's just the stuff in the offing. They also announced dates for like a dozen shows between February and August.
I'm just going to go ahead and call it. The Matt Groening announcement is a Trojan horse coming back for the 4th time. It's Futurama.
That would be amazing. I hope it is.
It's called Bride of Futurama's Ghost Child.
I know.
7, the rejuvening.
I really, really want that to be true, and I don't think it is, but that would be... So anyway, quickly these dates. Love by Judd Apatow, February 19th. House of Cards, March 4th, all the way down to The Get Down, now has a premiere date of August 12th. Any of these others? There's so many in here that caught your eye.
It's tough because I find myself suffering the same bias that I did in the television days where it's like you get excited about sequel. And of course, that's been one of the best things about Netflix Mania is that this fever of wanting to chase previous profits by banking on established properties. All the summer blockbusters tend to be sequels. Instead, Netflix found itself in the difficult position of like, we can't do the sequel game. Maybe we could bring back a dead property like, Arrested Development, but everything else they do had to be original. But now they find themselves like, well, we know people love that Orange is the New Black. They know that they clearly love Unspeakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Unspeakable. Don't say it. That's filthy.
Unspeakable. She don't talk. Damn it.
So I all of these look fantastic. I gotta tell you though, we talked about it before, very, very excited about the Get Down. I think that's a really fascinating set piece.
I guess the other one that I'm interested in is Stranger Things, starring Winona Ryder. It's a sci-fi series, July 15th. That's right after Orange is the New Black, month after Orange is the New Black on June 17th. Meanwhile, VP of Content Delivery for Netflix, David Fulliger, said, in coming weeks, those using proxies and unblockers will only be able to access the service in the country where they currently are. He emphasized that the goal is to license everything for everywhere, especially for their own originals. But until they can reach that idyllic pasture in the sky someday, they're going to have to block your proxies, or at least say publicly that they are, so that the licensors that they're paying don't get upset.
Yeah, I think this is the right call. Give lip service to it, because here's the thing. Shareholders are obviously going to be thrilled that they've reached 130 different markets now. They're not going to be thrilled if they find out that half the people aren't signing up for the new service because they're busy, using workarounds. And I'm going to guess for a lot of these people, and we've gotten emails from people who are very frustrated about all the content that's not available in their country. I'm going to guess for most users, though, they're going to be generally pleased with the selection available in their country.
I think that's not going to be true in the brand new country. So, because we're already, like, somebody from Kuwait complained, somebody from India complained. I think it's going to take a while. And here's the secret. The shareholders don't care if people use VPNs because Netflix gets the money either way.
That's correct. It's the licensors
that just care. The people selling the shows who are like, I only want to sell you the show in Uganda because I want to sell it to this other person in Nigeria who's willing to pay more. They don't want that to happen. Actually, it's more often North America to Africa or something like that. But basically, they want to be able to play the regions off as they have for decades. And with the internet, that's kind of going away.
Yeah, no, it really is becoming an increasingly antiquated system for that. Look, let's move on to the big, fat, juicy gossip. Somebody talking out of turn. Somebody spilling secrets during recess. Talk us through it, man.
Head of Research and Media Development for NBC Universal, Alan Wurtzel, at the Television Critics Association, was talking about competition from Netflix. They had contracted a company called Symphony Advanced Media to do some audio recognition research. Nielsen uses the same technology. It basically sits there and listens to what's being played on the television and logs it, so it can recognize things that are on Netflix and on Amazon and on Hulu. And he said shows like Jessica Jones and Master of None get an estimated 4 to 5 million viewers in the 18 to 49-year-old demo. And he said that's equivalent with Modern Family or How to Get Away with Murder. And the idea is, well, they're going to run through Master of None in a week, and then they're going to come back to NBC because we have all of this great stuff airing all the time. He said, I don't believe there's enough stuff on Netflix that is broad enough and consistent enough to affect us in a meaningful way on a consistent basis. To which Ted Sarandos said, well, I hope they didn't spend too much money on it, meaning the survey. The methodology doesn't reflect any sense of reality we keep track of.
Okay. There's so much about this that I love. I love the cattiness between them. I love the fact that Netflix has the moral high ground where they say, like, no, we're not going to give you any numbers. The only reason to give you numbers is to attract advertisers. We don't need advertisers. We're making a crap ton of money and we're keeping our people happy and we're happy with our originals. That's all you need to know. And then over there, NBC's like, oh, I just wish I knew what numbers they were doing. No, then Nielsen, they won't share it. I know, I'll hire my own study. And so they do it. And I assume what Netflix is really saying by I hope they didn't spend a lot of money on that study is like, son, numbers are so much. You have no idea. These numbers. You'll never know these numbers because we don't ever have to share them.
Well, and there are cross purposes here. NBC needs to see that they're getting consistent viewership for what we were talking about earlier because they're selling soap and cars every night in prime time. Netflix doesn't need to see that. So NBC looks at these numbers and go, oh, well, look at this. They got these huge numbers on Master of None, but they were all gone in 2 days. They can't sell any soap on that number. It just goes away. And Netflix is over there going, we don't care.
We don't sell.
As long as they paid $8 again the next month.
The only soap we need is to wash the filthy stink of money off of our hands. That's the only soap we care about. So here's the other thing is that accusation that there's not enough content over at Netflix is patently false. We're looking at a 2016 where we're going to have more than an original release per week on top of all the licensed back catalog of stuff. There's no way you could spend, if your job was to watch everything on Netflix, you would fail if you watched everything every minute, all day, every day, and never repeated a thing. From now to, I just made this fact up. I assume it's true, but I'm going to assume that it's not possible in the year 2016 to watch everything in Netflix's catalog. If that was your
just
life's
the originals,
ambition.
maybe. If you count other things in the catalog, absolutely.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is the total offering from Netflix is way too huge.
Well, and again, these are two people playing two different games. Going back to FX. The network president, John Landgraf, said, we make more money. We're more profitable than Netflix. Netflix isn't worried about being highly profitable yet. They just want to have potential for growth. And that's why they're throwing so much money into original content that they'll lock up the rights to forever, because that's going to end up long term being a back catalog that they can continue to run on. FX is not going to have that, because they're not owning all of those things unless they're thinking about launching their own service the way HBO did, which is why you hear about the CW possibly doing that sort of thing. And Netflix is over there saying, no, we're building for our future. That's a smart investment of money. And honestly, if they're getting 4 to 5 million viewers, 18 to 49, I would be worried about that number. The fact that a Netflix original is equivalent to a Modern Family seems to be a bad sign for network television, or at least it would have been laughable 3 or 4 years ago when Netflix first announced originals, don't you think?
So here's the thing. Here's what I suspect this all boils down to: is you can have, at the end of the day, you have people who want to be entertained, and you have artists who are creating these stories. In between, you got a lot of steps. You got licensors, you've got networks, you've got distribution, you've got stuff like syndication and all that stuff. And bit by bit, we're seeing that gap shrink because at the end of the day, yeah, we'll put up with a soap ad in order to watch I Love Lucy. We'll put up with this. We'll put up with that. We'll put up with time delay or region locking in order to get, G.I. Joe and cartoons and so on. We're entering a space where all of a sudden the network is getting totally squeezed out because you need a medium. You need a YouTube or a Netflix, some kind of delivery service, over the internet. You need content. Do you need the network? Do you need it to be branded FX? Do you need it to be branded as NBC? I don't think so. And I think that is meaning less and less. As we saw just now, ABC Family changed their name to, what was it? Shapeless or Formless or I forget what it is. Freeform. Yeah, there we go. It's
pretty close.
That's the kind of thing you do when things aren't going great and you suspect that you need your brand to mean something else. So you change the name.
I could see this both ways. Saying Freeform could be a step towards saying, you know what, we're not trying to capture family anymore. We tested a name with our audience and we're going to lock them up. I mean, if Freeform became a Hulu-like service that provided the kind of freeform content that appeals to that ABC Family demographic, I think that name is fine. Again, what you're saying is there's two things that are becoming one thing, right? Netflix is the network, but it's also the distributor.
Correct.
And so if NBC does an HBO, which they won't, but let's say they did and said, guess what? We're going to have an NBC service. That would make sense. It's what CBS is doing. CBS is like, hey, we're already offering an HBO-like service out there called All Access. Maybe it's a little early in the game, but we're going to have it when that transition starts to finally happen. And people are going to think about CBS shows still because of that, the way they think of Hulu and Netflix shows.
Yeah, and I've kind of been annoyed by the obstinacy of CBS refusing to really play ball with Hulu and so on. It's like, why don't you get with the program so we can watch everything in one place? But really, that kind of nonconformist move, that kind of forward thinking, hey, we all know where you're going to go. We're going to lay out our blanket way early, and then when the concert starts, you're going to wish you had our awesome spot, but you can't have it because we're there first.
Yeah. All right, but how are you going to watch all this stuff? Well, that's why we have a segment called Gear Up.
Oh, whatever do we carry on Gear Up?
Well, sometimes it's gear.
Sometimes
that
ups.
gear needs something. So today, it's not just about the gear. We're going to talk about the Apple TV, but a particular app that runs on the Apple TV, the VLC app. Now, VLC is not a service. It is a media player. And you may think, well, media player, how 2002 of you, Tom. But the VLC app, now available on Apple TV, can do the following. It can play Windows shares, UPnP, FTP, Plex servers. Oh, I have your attention, a few of you. Can cast from a browser page. You can drag any file into the page, and VLC is famous for being able to play almost any codec you can throw at it. So if it can't play it on the network, it will be able to probably take it from this browser page and share it into the Apple TV. Different than AirPlay. It's just a browser that you open on your local network that you just drag things into. You can also paste URLs for direct streams into there and then be able to watch the stream on Apple TV. Supports chapter navigation, multiple audio and subtitle tracks, custom playback speed, integrates with opensubtitles.org if you need to see it in another language. It can pull lyrics and album art from hatchet.is for music streams. And upcoming, they say they're going to integrate Dropbox, Box, and OneDrive. So it turns Apple TV into a VLC machine.
Listen, Tom, I think we've been pretty fair and consistent on this program that we are in favor of legal options. We don't want people to engage in piracy. We very rarely cover piracy news, and when we do, it's usually because it's newsworthy in and of itself. We think that it's possible to cut the cord and watch all the things you want and have a great time with purely legal means. However, it does seem to me that if I was, somebody working over at Apple and I wanted to see the market share for the Apple TV grow, seems like the number one most popular software package to view pirated content joining the store, making it really easy to watch what you want when you want on your device, would probably be a good thing.
See, this annoys me because it presupposes two things: that VLC is used for piracy, And that's the same argument as the torrents are piracy. No, they're not. Do people use VLC to watch content that they have downloaded without authorization? Absolutely. But that's not the only reason to use it. And I will give you a very good legal example. It is questionable because you may have broken terms of service by doing it. Let's say you legally purchase a bunch of videos from Vudu and iTunes, and you realize, well, wait a minute, I can't play them on this other platform. Maybe it's Amazon and Vudu, and you can't play them on the Apple TV. So you remove the copy protection, put them in VLC, and play them on the Apple TV. Are you breaking the DMCA? Maybe. Are you actually, pirating the content? No. And what VLC does is says, look, we don't know where the video came from, but we can play it. And I think it's important to note that it doesn't have to be used for piracy. All of that said, Brian, I know that the people who are very excited about it are people who download things without authorization.
And that's the weird double bind here, right? Because everything you said is that's how it should be. You should be allowed to have software that plays anything from everything. It doesn't ask you your grandmother's maiden name and make sure that it has your credit card on file before it gives you permission to access video. It's like, no, your job's to shut up and play video. Now shut up and play the video.
And I'll be honest, Apple isn't allowing VLC on the Apple TV because they want to increase market share amongst pirates.
Correct.
Apple has a vested interest in making you buy things from the iTunes store, and they make it real easy on the Apple TV to do that. Apple's allowing VLC on because they are, they are abiding by a principle that they've said, okay, well, if it doesn't incite piracy and it doesn't actually replicate any of our features, we're going to allow it on there. So I'm very glad that they have.
Yes, and it's nothing but good, and I apologize if I've rubbed any pirate stink on Apple, because that was certainly not my intention.
No, is that like a pirate deodorant that you would rub?
Pirate stink. You
Pirate
think
Off.
you smell bad now?
That's
Try
why
Pirate
this episode
Stink.
is brought to you by Pirate Off, which you can purchase anywhere you want. Just stop pirating stuff, and then you don't stink like a pirate anymore.
I'll tell you one thing you can't possibly pirate is any book written by Tom Merritt, because it's all available for free.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't pirate what's free.
Well, I guess you could. I mean, you could buy one of my books from Amazon and then rip off the digital locks and then make it available for free, but it'd be kind of pointless because I already give you a free version of the book.
You, Tom Merritt, you're the biggest pirate of them all.
I am.
The #1 distributor of pirated copies of Tom Merritt books.
Except now, wait a minute. If it's an authorized copy under a Creative Commons license, kind of takes the fun out of it, because now it's not unauthorized.
I had my eye patch on. I was sailing the 7 seas, and now all of a sudden you make me feel like a responsible citizen who goes to TomMerrittBooks.com to download any of your fantastic book absolutely freezies. Although my guess is you'll probably want to pay for it by heading on over to the Apple iBook version or checking out the Kindle version of Citadel 32, A Tale of the Aggregate. And do you have another book in the works? Can you?
I do. I have two, actually. I sent one to beta readers that I'm going to put up on inkshares.com. And then I started editing another one that's set in the same universe as Lot Beta, which is also available at TomMerrittBooks.com.
Very, very excited about that Lot Beta universe book.
Yeah, I'm having fun digging in and polishing it up. Meanwhile, let's head to the front lines.
Yeah!
Front lines!
Lorne Michaels, Fred Armisen, and Horatio Sands are launching a Latin America-focused comedy studio called Mas Mejor. I assume that's it. I would say Major. The hope is to discover new stars, Oscar Nunez and Carlos Alazraqui. Yeah, I nailed it. Are already on board. This is, to me, so wonderful. This is the other side of that complete democratization that we're talking about. Yes, everything is being balkanized, but we are all of a sudden finding portals to give very niche talent, not very niche talents, but niche talents that would never find a place in the old 3 network systems.
Yeah, and in fact, it's almost not niche talent at all. Right, because this is a massive population, as represented by the success of Univision and the ratings all the time, and Lorne Michaels, Fred Armisen, and Horatio Sands are like, holy crap, nobody's paying attention to this. This is a cash cow. So wonderful. Really smart to do this. A, because they have the connections in the community, and B, because they're really funny and good at what they do.
Absolutely, man. It's wonderful to see how international the world has become just in my lifetime. I don't know how much of it is me becoming older and more mature and more world traveled, and I don't know how much of it is the internet shrinking us all down to one clubhouse.
No es importante. New feature in beta builds of Chrome. If you download the Chromium browser, for instance, out of the nightly builds, or just a beta, doesn't even have to be the nightly, adds a cast option when you right-click on any page. So in the future, you will not need to install the Chromecast extension in Chrome.
That's fantastic, because the Chromecast extension in Chrome, I believe, was constantly labeled beta, right? Where it said you could kind of play full screen things, but we're not really promising anything. But now to have it fully integrated, that's great news, because they don't do that lightly.
Well, and it's nice for people who get a Chromecast, especially relatives maybe who are new to it, who are like, well, wait a minute, how do I send the tab? Well, you got to find the extension and download
the browser's called Chrome, and it's a Chromecast.
Yeah.
Why isn't it sending over?
So it just makes more sense to be like, right-click. Oh, I know right-click. Boom. Get your Chromecast.
Exactly. Hulu will unveil apps for VR headsets as well as some VR content this spring. Hulu's head of experience, Ben Smith, told Variety they're spending a lot of time on VR. Hulu has shot some VR content along with its originals. Full disclosure, Justin, Robert Young, and I just shot a bunch of content for Discovery VR, and man, oh man, I can't remember the last time I was this excited about a new platform, less because I think it's inherently great, but more because I love watching everyone cast about trying to figure out what does this content want to be? What does it want to say? And right now in the early days, the content is about the method of delivery, and it will cease to be that. It will become something else wonderful and surprising. We're going to see artistic forms that we never dreamed of over the next 5 years.
I think that's what's coolest about this is Hulu, I think we've told you before on the show, has hired Rocket Jump, Freddie Wong's company, to make some VR content in a couple of other places. But now what they're saying is, as we do our originals, we shoot a little VR content as an experiment. And they're not pretending that it's anything but what Brian said. They're like, we don't know what it's going to be good for yet, so we're trying stuff, and then we'll put it out there. And we know that most people won't view it, but the cutting edge, like super excited folks will view it, we'll get some feedback, and eventually we'll figure out how to use this. And that's the way it's done. Well done, Hulu. New set-top box called Cast from Genii lets you stream what you're watching on TV to your friends and family. And there's a chat function, too, where you can estimate how long it will take for the service to be shut down by a legal injunction. It'll cost $99 later this year.
Now, hold on. It says that, and Netflix goes on the record saying we think password sharing is a good thing. They seem to be...
Password sharing is the password sharing within a household they're fine with. Recasting Netflix to... 5 or 10 friends at various points around the globe, thus getting around the proxies that they're trying to block. I imagine they're not so cool with that.
Okay.
And honestly, it's not even going to be Netflix that objects to this. It's going to be the major broadcasters. As soon as you start sharing an NFL game out of market or out of the region, and so that somebody in Europe doesn't have to pay extra to watch it, boom, hammer going.
This is too bad, because this is what watching television in the modern age is missing. The ability in this completely offline, asynchronous way that we all consume media, instead of all of us howling at each other about you violated my spoiler-free living rights and all that stuff. Like, let's do the reverse. Let's make it possible for people to gather around and watch the same thing at the same time. Unfortunately, I think you're right, Tom. I think that they are going to get shut down. However, it is my hope that it will do well enough and be popular enough fast enough that instead of just shutting them down, there'll be a conversation about okay, what's it going to take for us to make this work? What kind of handshakes and documents do we have to sign?
Lots of things like this have existed before. There have been other companies try to do this with authentication to say, well, if you both have Netflix accounts and the movie is available on both your Netflix accounts, we'll sync it up so you can watch it at the same time and chat. They've not really caught on because they don't work as well as people want them to. Xbox allowed you to do this with Blu-ray. If you both had the discs, you could both put them in and sync them up and play it. A few other Blu-ray products did that as well. Nobody's really cracked it, but I think you're right. Hopefully it causes the conversation to happen to where companies will, like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, could build this in and say, we'll give you a way to do this that doesn't violate these problems.
Well, and there's already precedent for a huge demand for this. I can't count the number of times that I've Skyped another person, asked them to press play on a YouTube video, listened to the audio, and then synced it up so we're at the same place at the same time, and I'll actually watch it listening to their audio synced up. There's clearly a demand for this, and it's unfortunate that it's legal entanglements that keep us from getting the experience that we want there.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey man, Disney-owned Maker Studios is launching a network centered around PewDiePie called Revel Mode. PewDiePie himself said, "It's me and a bunch of really awesome YouTubers coming together as a group to do really awesome things." Points for specificity go to PewDiePie.
So if you go to revelmode.com, you'll see it. It's PewDiePie, Marsha, Dodger, Cinnamon Toast Ken, a few others, YouTube stars in there. And it feels like the next evolution of the multi-channel network, right? Maker started as a multi-channel network. We're like, we'll take several YouTube channels and we'll bring them together and we'll sell ads across all of them and everybody wins. And now it's like, well, let's do that on steroids with only the most successful YouTube stars together, and then they can cross-promote. So it's a natural evolution of what happens at my wife's place of work, YouTube, when YouTube creators are trying to figure out how to help each other out more.
And certainly the power of cross-branding and cross-promotion has shown itself to be extraordinarily valuable. But good on you guys.
All right, let's see what's under surveillance, because those are shows.
Under surveillance.
What would be the point of all of this if you couldn't watch things, folks? And you can now watch the entire pilot for The Magicians online again. It's actually been around for since December, but they're getting close to the January 25th premiere of the show on Sci-Fi. So they're letting you either download it. I downloaded it on, I think from Vudu, actually, and watched it for free, but you could also get it at sci-fi.com. It's based on the book, and it's pretty good. I actually played it with Eileen sitting on the couch doing some work, and I caught her watching it, and when it was done, she's like, that was pretty good.
Right on. Well, we'll talk about it more in spoiler in time. What else we got?
Amazon's next theater release movie will be called Patterson. It'll be directed by Jim Jarmusch, starring Adam Driver. And it's about a bus driver named Patterson, who lives in Patterson, New Jersey. His routine life is compared to his wife's constantly changing goals in a narrative that takes place over the course of 1 week. Very Jim Jarmusch. If you don't like Jim Jarmusch, you're not going to like this. But if you like Jim Jarmusch, you're probably going to like this.
I just feel like the writers meeting, they're high as a kite. They're like, we got Adam Driver. What's he do? He drives.
But that's Jim Jarmusch, man. Like, Night on Earth. It'll be people driving around for an hour at the same time on Earth at night.
All right. Hey, man, what have you been watching?
I watched a lot of things I can't talk about.
What?
Because of the things. But I did watch Part-Timers, a new YouTube show, episode 1 of Part-Timers. It is about people who work at a kind of a Chuck E. Cheese-like place. And it's a comedy. It's got sort of that Nickelodeon feel, but elevated. It's like all the people who grew up watching Nickelodeon comedies like got to college. This would be the thing that they'd like, which is I think exactly what they're targeting. It was really funny. I wasn't expecting it to be as funny as it was, and I liked it.
Awesome. Dude, that's fantastic.
Also watched the first episode of Justified, which I will talk on spoiler in time, but I liked it, if you must know. More details coming in spoiler in time, but I thought it was really good. I'm getting close to the end of Clone Wars. I wanted to catch up on all the Clone Wars before episode 7 came out, and so now I'm kind of backpedaling to get them all in. Star Wars Rebels is going to relaunch in 2 days.
I ran across an awesome spoiler. I guess it's news.
Well, there's a trailer, yeah.
Yeah, but about a certain Rebel princess that will be joining the gang on Rebels, which...
this coming season, there's going to be all kinds of...
I kind of wish I didn't know that, because that would be really great to see unfold on your own and be like, oh my God, it's blending! But again, that's fine. That's my Jeff Kanata-ness about me.
And, of course, The Expanse, continue to watch, and Brian's catching up on that. We'll talk about some of those episodes in spoiler in time as well. What have you been watching?
The Expanse, like you mentioned, I finished up all of Master of None and been watching Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I don't know how I missed the fact that Season 9 was out and available, and I hadn't been watching it. So now I'm plowing through Season 9 and going into Season 10, I believe.
I got to finish 7, get through 8, and get to 9.
Oh, wow. Wow, yeah. You're way behind.
I'm way behind.
Okay, all right.
Otherwise, I would have watched it along with you, but... what's on the lookout there, Bryce?
Hey, we got a letter in from Tyson. He wanted to tell us about Hannibal. He writes, Hannibal is equal parts esoteric, beautiful, and terrifying. Unfortunately, the series was never popular, despite its second season scoring 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think the nostalgia for the Anthony Hopkins films has kept potential audiences from trying a different Dr. Lecter. It follows an FBI profiler, Will Graham, who is investigating a serial killer in Minnesota with the help of Dr. Hannibal Lecter. Eventually, Hannibal Lecter is intrigued by Will and tries to turn him into a serial killer. And we're looking at this is a fan edit of a teaser, and it really is a gorgeous show. There are 3 seasons available. They're hour-long episodes. Season 1 and 2 are available with the Prime subscription on Amazon Prime. Season 3 is available for purchase now. I think it'll probably become free in the next 6 to 12 months because it came out in 2015, that season. And there are talks of maybe it'll get a new season or a movie, but because Amazon has streaming exclusivity, and I think there were just like incompatible motivations, that it wasn't a sure deal. So fingers crossed. But I know a lot of people really love Hannibal. Have you guys gotten a chance to see Hannibal yet?
I haven't, just because there are certain genres that are locked up with. I'll probably watch it with my wife, and I can tell you right now, no matter how gorgeously they prepare the faux food human meat, she will not be interested.
I want to watch Hannibal. Everyone who's seen it, whose opinion I respect, absolutely adores it. You made me watch Justified instead. So if I don't watch Hannibal, it's your fault for voting for Justified.
Let's do some dispatches from the front.
Hey, wait a minute. Got something you want to be on the lookout. Email cordkillers@gmail.com.
Oh, yep, that's right. Now let's do dispatches from the front.
Keith said, I noticed on my PS3 that the latest Netflix interface will start auto-playing a title when you have selected it and are on the screen that has the options menu for the different things you can do with that title, like resume, start over, etc. Also, Ridiculous 6 was the main featured title that was there when I opened the PS3 app, so it would fairly often auto-start behind the menu. So when I heard that Ridiculous 6 was the most viewed original, I got very skeptical that it was due to auto-playing and not due to people actually watching it. What do you think? And Keith, you should know that is a new standard procedure for Netflix. In fact, we've talked about it on the show before because it's what sucked me into rewatching Star Trek Voyager for a while, is because it just started playing. But Brian, do you think there's any motivation for Netflix, who doesn't admit numbers, to fake their own internal numbers?
Exactly, because the important part is not that it was the most viewed thing. The important part of was how excited they were about it. And if it was the kind of thing where they watched it and clearly everyone watched 30 seconds and then shut it off, they would not be excited about it. They would say, well, that's a dud. Yes, it got numbers. That's because we pushed it so hard. But we could tell the difference between people actually watching and people who just left their computer on, because they have those metrics. And because they're in that position, I got to imagine if they're loudly touting what a great value it was, then my guess is it was a pretty great value.
Yeah, and again, for whatever reason, they want to say it was worth it so that when they put out the next Adam Sandler movie, those people come back. If it wasn't worth it, I'm not sure that it would matter, because they're not playing that game. Everybody wants numbers because we're curious, but there's no reason for Netflix to give you numbers. There's just no earthly reason for it.
Correct. Because, I mean, it's lose-lose. Either they admit the numbers, they're lower than you thought, and then your confidence in Netflix goes down, or they show the numbers, and they're higher than you thought, and then you have this, screw you, Dad, I'm going to rebel against the Empire feeling about them, you know? There's no reason for them to do it.
I won't finish what I started.
Roy writes in, saying, on Cordkillers 103, a lot of paperwork, you asked how I use Sling TV. Its primary use is to watch HBO shows and The Walking Dead live and on demand. Its secondary use is a set it and forget it device where I'll pop in HGTV for Sunday morning and then zone into other devices or move around the house. When there are games of interest, I'll watch NCAA football live on ESPN. In my house, Hulu is king, with Google Play second, Sling third, and Netflix dead last. I got to admit, that surprised me.
Interesting. I guess I can see that situation, though, where Netflix is, you're like, well, there's nothing else on.
Well,
let's dig into Netflix and see what they've got.
If you're somebody who likes, what do we call it? Euphemistically, waterfall television, just on in the background playing whatever, then yeah, I would imagine Netflix is a really bad option, because you're either going to stream through an entire run of narrative shows that all ostensibly should tie together, or, meanwhile, you've got Sling TV where it's like, you don't feel bad at all if you're not watching. That movie's going to be playing whether you're watching or not.
I had some soccer playing on Sling TV the other day just because we wanted to have something on and it was interesting to have on. I put Sling TV on more often this weekend than I have recently because of that, because I was like, I just want to have a little something on. But when there's a lot of shows happening, then I don't do that. And that's when Sling starts to suffer. Gentlemen, a couple of shows ago, Fraser Cain was on and recommended an English comedy called The Detectorists. My wife and I watched the 6 episodes and it was great. Please give it a watch if you enjoy British humor. I don't think you will be disappointed.
Yeah, Rob from Damascus, Maryland says, I wish there was an app for my Roku or for Inside Plex or for any other damn place that would keep track of my personal library. I buy movies on Amazon, Google, on DVD to rip for Plex, etc. And then when I want to watch the one, I can't find the damn things. Worse, my kids will rent things I already own, perhaps karma at work for me paying back for my torrenting days. But because there's not an easy way to find it all together, I've checked. Roku's search doesn't turn up the things I already own on these services. Is there such an app, or maybe one of your listeners would like to create one? I defer to you, Tom, because I don't know of anything like this. And I
defer to you, Brian, because I don't have an answer to this
okay,
either.
good. So
but you know what?
agree.
I bet somebody who's way into Plex knows an extension or an app that you can add to Plex, or maybe something that can read the Plex database that you can access, because it's exactly the kind of thing that Plex and XBMC were made to do.
Yeah, something like a content management version of Hootsuite, where you give it all your passwords and it goes in and it finds out all the things you got and it shows it all in a pretty interface and then you click on whatever you want and it loads it and throws it on.
Yeah. So anyway, if you have heard of something like that, I know you can do it for just the things in Plex, but the trick is being able to look at your Google Play and your Vudu and your Amazon and find out that stuff as well. Thank you, Rob. Our website, folks, is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. Those are both 90s technologies that we used to use to access content, websites, and email addresses. We're live on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I'll see you on Snapchat.
Hey guys, Tom and Brian here. We just wanted to say thank you to all of our $5 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent. You guys make Cordkillers the production that it is.
Your name appears in the video credits and appears in our hearts. And if you'd like to become one of them or see who they are, you can go to patreon.com/Cordkillers.
You'll need to do more than just go there, though. You'll have to sign up and, pledge an amount. But
unless you just want to see who they are.
Well, I mean, you could gawk. That's a little creepy, isn't it?
If you want to be a gawker,
let's go.
It's up to you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.